So next, so here we are. So I'll call the meeting to order. First thing is approval of minutes of August 20th. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with a slight clarification on page 2 as to how many 8-foot, 72-inch culverts we're buying from Target. We're buying 1 or 2 from them?
2, I think.
2. So to clarify that, to say we're purchasing
Not
2
8.
8-foot,
Yeah.
2, not
Okay.
8 then, and they're 72 inches.
72 inches,
okay.
right?
Good.
Okay, so
Second on that?
second to approve the minutes as
Second?
amended. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Next is addition to the agenda. I have one, and that is the plan of conservation and development, planning and zoning. Are there any other additions to the agenda?
Yes, I had one thought.
Okay.
Since our Senator Chris Murphy was denied access to Russia, I thought it might be nice if Cornwall invited him to come to our annual agricultural fair so that he
Okay.
knows he's welcome in Cornwall, Connecticut.
Okay, we'll put inviting Senator Murphy to the agricultural fair.
I'll second those 2 additions.
Okay. Any others? Any discussion? All those in favor?
I have one thing I'd like to add, and I don't know where it belongs, Gordon.
Okay.
But I keep hearing about stolen farm market signs. And it doesn't sound right to me. It doesn't sound like that's what people in Cornwall do. But
Okay.
Richard has called it to my attention, and I just feel that we ought to say something that's not the way we behave or something and get people to straighten up.
Okay. Do you want to add that also to the agenda? Or do you want to just put that under communication?
Just put it down as a communication,
Okay.
I think it's fine.
All right. So we can start with that. Take it away. I have talked to Richard. He said some of his farm market signs have been missing. And I again said, I'm sorry to hear that. And I would agree with you, that's not what Cornwall is known for or does. So,
Yeah, I mean,
right, I think it makes all the farm markets look bad and whatever else happens. But again, I know people do things that we disapprove of, and unfortunately that's out there. Okay, any other thoughts on that? Communications, I have one from the Shore Service that thanks the town of Cornwall for the contribution to provide medical help at home for seniors throughout northwestern Connecticut. And they're providing care currently for 15 residents in Cornwall, and that they said that they were contributions from the towns are more critical this year than ever as they face possible cuts to federal funding. So anyway, so that's good to hear from them, and that they are helping our seniors out. Any other communications? Public comments? Any public comments from the public?
I have a comment about item 1.
Okay.
I don't know what the railroad spring in West Cornwall is about, but in Cornwall Bridge, next to the train station on the riverside, the railroad has been spraying there, and there's a lot of people that are in Cornwall Bridge that find that very unusual because it's never happened before. And that's, like right across from Doty's and all those properties there. And it's, I think that Walter Irving, for example, is interested in doing trimming of the trees and et cetera that are on opposite his, where he lives, because he likes the view of the river. And maybe that's something that other people could do to get, so that the train, so that the railroad does not have to spray, and because it looks like everything is 3 months ahead of what its schedule should be in terms of leaf change and et cetera.
Okay, any other public comments? So let's get into our agenda. First item is railroad spraying West Cornwall. This has 2 parts. We have an ongoing issue with the pine trees that were killed, most noticeably north of West Cornwall along the railroad tracks. So I had been, then the second part of this was I got calls from residents of West Cornwall that the railroad had done brush spraying on Friday the 23rd of August, and I did inspect the tracks and met with some people who called up, and they basically had sprayed some of the brush along the tracks. And tonight, as I was going down Lime Rock Station Road in Falls Village, I saw that they'd killed a bunch of sumacs and trees were showing stress in Falls Village, in addition to some of the trees. So it's not just the brush on the side of the road, they've gotten into the trees. So they did file a vegetation management plan with us, and going back to 2014, 2015, when this issue first came to our attention, we did have a series of conversations and correspondence, none of them very satisfactory, with the railroad in the state about the spraying. And there was a photographic record made of that time of some of the pine trees that had the trackside turned brown, and these are very big trees. Since 2004 and 5, those trees are now dead, and more are dying from the trackside towards the town road, and we have written the railroad about this condition before. This summer I have been working with a well-known arborist who has filed a report for us and has reviewed the sprays that were used in 2004 and 14 and 15, and in his opinion, I've given you, I think, a copy of that report, that the sprays and the way that they were applied with agents that would penetrate the bark likely caused the death of these trees, which are now hazards, tree hazards, all up and down the railroad tracks. So both of these conditions aren't great, but certainly killing trees doesn't make a lot of sense, especially big trees that then become hazard. And I think we really have to push this issue this fall, because these trees are going to fall either in the river, on the tracks, or on the town roads, or on people's property. And again, his report is pretty conclusive, and I've sent copies of it to our state representatives, to the River Commission, and we will publicize that work. And I think it's going to lead to a meeting. I want to meet with our tree wardens down there to confirm the botanist's findings, but I think it's pretty conclusive that there's definitely a problem of dead trees along the tracks. There was overspray. His findings were that the particular mixture of sprays that were used were also recommended by the University of California to kill invasive species. This is how you kill living woody plants. In most cases they were thinking invasive species. In this case it was native pine trees. The replacement value of these pine trees is thousands of dollars if the state wants to replace their pine trees. But it's a major problem that is not being addressed at this time, and I think we need to address it, starting with writing again our representatives, the Housatonic Railroad and the Department of Transportation, showing the evidence that we have and requesting a meeting down there to see how the state and the railroad company are going to deal with this hazardous situation that was caused by misuse of herbicides. Any thoughts?
In our
Before
last conversations or correspondence with them,
Right.
was there some discussion that they would notify us about sprayings taking place?
Well, they
Did
have
we
to.
ask them for that and they said no?
Well, they have to tell us what their plans are, and their plans are to meet state and federal guidelines for or herbicide application. And again, I'm not a herbicide expert, but it's clear that this particular application caused a hazardous situation up and down the tracks, and it's probably not just in West Cornwall, as Mr. Harding said. They're now spraying in other areas, and I've seen it. And again, it hasn't had the tremendous impact of killing very large trees, but again, this is being applied in brush in residential areas, well off the tracks. Again, they used to cut the brush as opposed to just kill it. People are concerned about their pets playing in these areas where they're now laced with herbicides. It's in people's backyards, front yards, whatever in these areas. So I think it is a public safety concern, as well as again, this is the state of Connecticut's property. So any other thoughts on, John, we talk about this amongst ourselves, and then we'll have public comment at the end. Thank you. So any thoughts about this? I'll draft a letter up, and again, I think we need to meet where there's problems and get some answers as far as two things. What did they spray in August? One set of questions that should be and they have been forthcoming about what they had sprayed in the past. I think this is probably the first major spraying they've had since they did the damage in 4 years ago. But so then we have this August issue, and then we have dealing with its major expense of taking these trees down or handling them. And again, that's just in one section, and there's other areas that have damage up and down throughout Cornwall, and probably in other towns too. So anyway, I mean,
It's a difficult thing because the impact is felt by Cornwall residents, local people, Cornwall property owners, yet it's state controlled. It's state property that is leased by the railroad.
right.
So you have a bunch of moving parts that don't have to answer to the town of Cornwall in any way, shape, or form, or very little anyway. Maybe
Right, there's not
marginally answer to it.
There's not a direct line of communication, so we have to get our representative involved.
Yeah.
And to me, it's too bad it happened. It's inconceivable how the trees, if they were going to be a problem for the tracks, it's obviously better to cut them than have them killed and then fall whenever they feel like falling.
It's frustrating because we've had this conversation with them before.
Right.
We've made the complaint based on requests of local residents. You've been there for us before, Gordon, and so it's doubly frustrating. To me, it feels like they didn't hear us or they're ignoring us. They heard us, but so what?
Right.
Which I don't like.
Are there other towns in this area that are with similar issues?
I haven't heard of others
Maybe
that
that's
are
something.
as impacted, but I could call up, but I don't think they've had the damage that's happened down here, at least I haven't seen it.
You know, maybe in Kent or New Milford.
Yeah, Canaan Falls Village.
Right, right.
Yeah. It just happens there was there's white pines growing along the track, and part of the problem is the ones that are on the riverside of the track are down the bank from railroad tracks. The railroad track bank is up here. You're spraying not at the brush at the base, but you're hitting the trunks of the trees as you're going out with your spray. And if you mix in these oils which penetrate the bark, it's going right into the tree. So any other thoughts about that? Anyway, I'll draft a letter up and send it out. And basically ask information and then consult with our representatives and see if we can't get some satisfaction, see if they can work with DOT to get some better answers for us as far as what is the management program going to be to remove these trees. I think. Okay. John, do you have any comments, thoughts?
Yes. Years ago, when we bought our property here, we had a hedge that went from our property all the way to Popple Swamp Road. In the hedge were trees. And we came up one weekend and the hedge to where the turnaround is what we call it, now where fishing, parking, etc. The hedge was gone and so were the trees. But past that point, we still have a hedge. And I have, at that point, I talked with the management of the railroad, and I said that I would be very happy to take care of the hedge and also the trees all the way in the brush down to the river. And I have been doing that since that time, and I have had great success with them. And whenever there is, for example, a tree that falls down across the tracks or onto the tracks or whatever, I report it to them so that they can come and clear it up. And that also applies to well into the state forest from our property. So the agreement that I've had, which is basically a gentleman's agreement with them, has worked quite well. And I still have the signs up that I put up there, which is do not spray, do not cut or spray, and they don't. So it's worked very nicely for us, and I can also see other properties which have done the same thing.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that story.
But it doesn't mean that that they don't change their mind soon, but they would certainly be violating a gentleman's agreement with us that has gone on for quite some time. And it was not difficult to establish.
Okay. So, all right, so we'll pursue that. Next, culverts, I signed the contract as authorized with Town and Orel, who are presently finishing up getting their application in front of the Inland Wetlands Commission. And they hope to start on Cream Hill probably next week, and then start on the Lake Road culvert first week in October. So they're doing Cream Hill first, Lake Road second. And there is going to be detours posted as needed. So that's underway. E-bikes, new business open in West Cornwall. I heard there was quite a few rentals of the electric bikes this weekend. Any report from the neighbor, Priscilla?
They seem
taken-
quite busy.
Have you taken a ride on the electric bike?
No,
yet?
I haven't taken a
Right.
ride on an electric bike. I think I'll leave that for the younger members of the community.
Okay,
But it was nice to see activity next
Mm-hmm.
door. They were kind of put off on Monday because of the rain that
Sure.
we had. But they seemed to be quite busy on Saturday and Sunday, and again today.
right,
So I think a lot of people now know about it,
right,
and they seem to be very personable gentlemen.
right.
And it's only good as far as,
It's good, yeah,
as far as
so-
the neighbor is concerned.
Good.
It's only a good thing.
And I saw his family out there at 7 o'clock one night before they opened up, planting flowers around the store. So that was good to see that
Yeah.
going on. So, anything else on that?
I did see an article, there's this article that was put in the file, but there was an
Yeah.
article in the last week or so that I'm not sure who's National Park Service
Yes,
either has or will be changing, or is anticipating changing the rules that will allow e-bikes on bicycle trails in the national parks.
Oh, good.
right?
Well, there's mixed reviews on it, actually. On some people,
Some people don't. Some people
I'm not
do.
sure. I'm not sure it was going to be. It wasn't on
I don't
hiking
think it's
trails.
everywhere.
It was
Right.
on. It was on bicycle paths, I believe. I'm just. The point of it is that they are, really around. There's a lot more of them. We may be being introduced to them,
Yes.
but they are
they're
around.
nothing new.
They're nothing new. They're around in a lot of places.
Good. So, next, West Cornwall Water Treatment Timeline, USDA. So last week, Steve McDonald, the engineer, Todd Piker and I met here with some representatives from USDA to see about their grant programs and timelines and application process. And it was a productive meeting. This same group currently is in the area working in Kent on a sewer upgrade, I believe. Maybe the sidewalks. They're financing the transfer station for Sharon and Salisbury, and they're also doing the Norfolk sewer upgrade. The upshot of the meeting was a couple things. One was if the project will hopefully stay under $5 million, and that will allow a state review. The bigger the project, the more reviews happen, which take time and increase competition. Currently, there's another round of funding applications opening in October, and we'll be near the front of the line to start if we get an application going by October. So one of the things we'll need to do tonight is to formally authorize Steve McDonald, the engineer, to start the online applications to USDA. And again, there's no obligation that the town has to take this grant if we get it, but you have to start. And certainly the vote in July showed a strong town preference for proceeding. So the timeline would be that we would apply, or Steve McDonald would apply and summarize the project on behalf of the town this month. Then they'd look at it preliminarily, see if it fits their criterion, which they feel it informally it does. They review and respond to it. But in order for a complete review, they need a town positive vote, which means the town would have to approve the whole project and authorize the project to proceed, because it takes a lot of time to review these applications on both the state and federal level, And if the town is ultimately not going to do it, they're not going to waste their time reviewing a project that does not have support. So that was interesting news. So my thought is probably we would look at doing a vote in the spring of 2020 for the project at this point, because it's going to take a while for the project to get its preliminary reviews going. And it's going to probably take most of 2020 to complete the review on the state and federal level, according to USDA. I just asked them what are we looking like for a timeline, and then assuming that the review is completed, it would take a good part of the year 2021 to design the project, go out to bid, receive bids, get all the legal work done, the easements and everything else, and it would probably take a good part of 2022 to build it. So that's roughly, I mean, it'd be nice to have it done quicker than that, but realistically, that's how long these programs take. There's public
I think
hearings.
that's being optimistic.
Thank you. I mean, there's a lot of public hearings, different agencies have public hearings, somebody objects, somebody, you know, so it's not just a town meeting, boom, you do it. There's a whole bunch of reviews, and as we're discharging into the Housatonic River, which is permitted according to DEP, we are discharging into a river with effluent that's cleaner than the water that's in the river right now. But anyway, so it's a complicated process that will take a while, but I think the main thing to focus on, I think this is a doable time frame, and also thinking about a townwide vote in the spring of 2020 gives this board, the committee, the engineers, more time to gather information and have a complete proposal in the spring of next year would be our goal. And again, all these things have to happen in sequence, and maybe something will happen at USDA, but they felt this is the type of project that they fund. There's a certain ranking, there's a certain weight depending on things like environmental problem solving and that kind of thing that will determine some of the USDA funding, whether it's what percentage is grant and what percentage is a loan.
So that means there would be nothing done in October for that initial.
This October.
Yeah, this October.
This October we would be doing, just applying tentatively. We do a preliminary
we would be,
application
okay.
online, and then we start talking more frequently to USDA. What do they see?
Okay.
That's outreach to DEP, and some of the state agencies would have to happen this year.
Okay.
And then we would have to get, again, the engineering nailed down as far as the proposal, nail down a site for the treatment center, nail down the costs, nail down the participation rate, talk more about the technology involved.
And this is all for a preliminary application to
No, we can
USDA?
apply the preliminary application right now, and in fact we'll vote on that tonight. Is getting going on a preliminary application is what they call it. But to
Okay.
get the real review and feedback and approval from USDA and the other agencies, we have to have a townwide positive vote.
With the preliminary application, which we're going to vote on tonight,
Right.
with the strong support of the town vote, does that give us any feedback from USDA as to what they may be funding us at?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things they're going to come back with.
With the preliminary
Yeah, some
offering
ideas.
of some
Yeah.
sort.
Yeah.
And then we need to then support that with more information and a town vote.
Yeah.
At least we're getting started.
Right,
I feel positive about that. We're making the
Right.
first step.
yeah.
So do you need a motion to be authorized to enter into this? Is that where we're going
Well,
with
I think
this?
what we should do is just have a motion to authorize WMC to apply to USDA for a preliminary application for a wastewater treatment
So I'll make
facility.
a motion that we, the
In West
selectmen, authorize WMC to make a preliminary application to the USDA. Sounds like all consonants and vowels in here.
Yeah, yeah.
For the West
Okay.
Cornwall sewer
Wastewater treatment facility
wastewater
is our new title.
for the West Cornwall wastewater treatment facility.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I believe the committee will meet next week to get back in motion. So then, next is landscaping at Town Hall and spruce tree. Thanks go out to Debbie Bennett and her crew from the Kent Greenhouse who took it upon themselves to spruce up, no pun intended, the front of the Town Hall area, and they put in some nice borders and mulch around some of the perennial beds, and did a really nice job. So it's all set for the agricultural fair in on September 15th, September 14th. The only request she had was that the board consider taking down the diseased and dying spruce tree that's out there that is losing its needles, which apparently the spruce are having some sort of fungus. So I'm going to consult with the tree warden, Fred Scoville. She felt as there is a certain amount of rebirth happening in town, she thought having a dying tree in front of the town hall was not a very good symbol. And I have to sort of agree with her. We can do better than that, and unfortunately the tree is not doing well, but I'll consult with our tree warden also about that. And also try to think of a tree. There used to be a bigger spruce where this oak tree is now, and try to think of a species that does not overpower the building behind it. And she suggested a crabapple might be a nice planting. So that's another thing, again, that doesn't have to be done immediately, but should be on our to-do list.
Good time to plant trees.
Yeah. Okay. So I will get back and I will write Debbie a thank you on behalf of the board for her excellent work. Okay. Next is a Hammond Beach easement. I was approached by HVA earlier in the summer, saying that they had some conversations, and we've talked about it before, about revising the restrictive covenants that go with the Hammond Beach. And I think I sent you the supporting documents originally when this was given to the town in the late 1980s. There was a very longer agreement that HVA felt could be simplified, and we also wanted to address the issue of possibly launching a few kayaks or paddle boards from the town beach, which is an example of things that were prohibited in the old lease that could be updated. And HVA felt if we had language that would generally acknowledge that the town has met its obligations to build the beach and operate in a safe way, but on an ongoing basis, they will continue to monitor it in accordance with Mrs. Hammond's wishes, and this update is agreeable to her 3 children, who I met with 2 of them. I did have town attorney Pearlie Grimes look at this, and he had a few suggestions, which I think he saw one of his edit issues, which had, you know, some minor things about it. And I know this is the first time you've seen it, and we don't have to sign it tonight. Or what I need is authorization to sign it on behalf of the town. It would be good to sign it if we can, soon as one of the heirs of Mrs. Hammond is leaving Cornwall for her year-round residence in a couple
On the
days.
9th.
Yeah.
She goes back on the
So
9th.
So this at the moment has been reviewed by all the principals?
yeah,
that
by
being-
the Hammond heirs, by town's attorney, HVA's attorney, I believe HVA's board, HVA staff.
or
and everybody.
the town attorney, right?
Yeah. So it.
And it does seem to do what everyone individually wanted for themselves
Right.
and for the betterment of the agreement. The language seems to be a little easier. It does reference back to the original agreement a few
Right.
times out.
Seems very thorough,
Yeah.
nothing left out.
And again, it's been a wonderful asset for the town for 30 years.
Yeah.
And Roxana Hammond was very far-sighted and very generous in her gift. And this summer, just to go up there and see people swim there and enjoy that, the swim team, who and some people otherwise would not have a place to swim in Cornwall. It's one of those wonderful gifts that keep us on giving every season. And I know our beach director, Marina Kochabi, has had some new programs up there, which the Hammond family have attended and have been delighted to see how it's all worked out.
So once everyone signs this, this is then recorded on the land records?
Right, yeah.
Is there any reason we shouldn't be approving this time?
No,
I think it's an update, and I think it's good, to get it going and again to acknowledge the generosity of that family to the town and keep the relationship going
And this will be continued to be administered
by HVA.
by HVA?
Yeah. Who's also based in town, and there was a small endowment set up with this for their expenses, so and they're happy to do it as a town organization, town-based organization. So do you want to make a motion that the board agrees to these modifications?
I'll be happy to make a motion that the Board of Selectmen agree to the Hammond Beach modification of restrictive covenants as presented at this evening's meeting, following meetings with our first selectman and the 3 heirs, Lisa Nicholson, Roxana Laughlin, and Edward Dodd.
Okay,
Is this the draft copy of, will this be the final one? The draft
right,
copy
so
of-
what we'll do is, now that once we vote to do this, then we can do a final copy, and then we'll make copies of the copies, and you folks can come in and record your signatures.
Tell us
There actually
when.
only needs to be 2 selectmen, but I think it's good to have all 3, just because it shows who was involved at that time. What do you think, Joyce? Notary supreme? We don't need 3, but why not have 3?
Yeah, more the merrier.
Right.
The more
Okay.
solid it is,
What?
the more solid it is.
Right. Good. So, any more discussion?
Was there a second? Or did-
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Something else, another agreement with, that we have to get organized to sign, the license agreement to operate the Bend, parking lot facility in West Cornwall, and we have a draft there, which I've said it, I think Pearlie's seen this before, but we'll send it to him again to make sure he's fine with that.
He
And
got it
also,
last Thursday, so.
right, so he's looking at it, and again, it would be good to try to get this executed at our next meeting or so, to check it off our list of things to do, and there is some things that town insurance, Kerma has to agree to do that, as far as holding Eversource harmless, for the town having that leased facility there. I did talk to the representative several months ago, and he did not think it was a big deal, but now he'll get to see the actual,
It looks like
thing.
only you have to sign that.
Right. So are there any thoughts about this? We can put it off till next month, maybe. Why don't we hear, we'll get the official Pearly word, and then we can execute it at our next meeting if I hear anything back.
Yes, because has Kerma seen an actual copy of this?
No, they haven't. I mean, they got it today or yesterday or last
But
week.
that shouldn't be a big problem
No.
either, but it would be good for
We
them
insure a
to,
lot of things.
they insure a lot of
Right.
things, and this would be one
Right.
of them, and it wouldn't be a big deal, but it'd be good for them to see the exact language of it.
And again, we have HVA help monitoring that down there. Last time I was down there, there was a car from North Carolina and one from New Jersey and 2 from Connecticut in the parking lot. So people are using it, and it's worked out pretty well. So anyway, we'll continue that discussion next time. Air monitor installation. Garrick Deneen has installed the air monitor to the south of the town clerk's office, so the town clerk can keep a good eye on it. And I think he's begun to he set it up so it will start making readings. So we have to check in with the mothership and at Kent School and see if they're getting our signals or anything else has to happen with it. But it is up on a post nearby, ready for the cow chip bingo, and ready to be operated. So that's done. And thank Garrick for getting on that.
Okay.
Anything else on that? So that is, if not completely functional, it's installed. Next, as things sometime will work out, I did get a call following our last meeting the next day from Rick Lynn, who said there's a new planning concept that promotes designing roadways to safely accommodate the needs of all users. This includes people of all ages and abilities, regardless of whether they are traveling as drivers, pedestrians, bicyclists, public transportation riders. Complete streets elements may include sidewalks, bicycle lanes, bus stops, shelters, bus stop and shelters, roadway crossing opportunities, landscape mediums, curb extensions, bump outs, streetscape improvements. So apparently the capital region, which is Hartford, has secured a grant for small-scale complete street demonstration project for each of the COGs in Connecticut. As we discussed, you may be interested in pursuing this opportunity through the Northwest Hills Council of Governments as for a temporary demonstration project in Cornwall Bridge. The specifics of the project would be based on local input and assistance of a planning engineering firm. The goals might include increasing roadway and pedestrian safety, traffic calming, improved parking, bicycle enhancement, better access to use of the Cornwall Bridge Green. Demonstration project could include temporarily closing or making one way the western intersection of Route 7 and Route 4, temporarily closing or making one way the eastern section of Route 4 and 7. Narrowing the travel lanes, reducing speed limits, use of speed monitoring devices, such as was installed in West Cornwall, but actually there's one in Cornwall Bridge too. But anyway, temporarily providing parking for local businesses, placing picnic tables, bike racks, and other amenities in the green to encourage enhanced use. The demonstration project will be temporary and tried for just a limited period of time to see how things work out. At the end of the project, all material used will be removed. Temporary signage, hay bales, road striping, picnic tables, bike racks, etc. The town could then decide whether or not to pursue permanent installation of any of the complete street improvements in the future. There would be no cost to the town to participate in the demonstration project. If you're interested in pursuing such a project, please let me know and I will reach out to the project sponsors and CONDOT to see about creating a coordinating team to help plan the project. Thank you for your consideration. So,
It sounds like a good idea. It doesn't cost Cornwall anything. I think we should explore it.
okay. Richard?
Depends on what the temporary plan is. You know, we have input, but the state will certainly tell us what they're gonna allow or not allow,
Yeah.
I would say.
I think a key part to the success here is having, and see how this unfolds, but to get it, if this happens next spring or something, whatever. I mean, obviously they can't put hay bales in the middle of Route 7 during the winter. I don't think that's gonna happen. But if there's a chance to have public input session sometime in the winter, spring, design something that would work in sort of a non-hectic time of the year, put something out. The idea of having a temporary installation is something that hadn't crossed my mind, but I'm not a traffic engineer. But it is sort of intriguing to be able to, with CONDOT's cooperation, to try out some scenarios of what might work better. People might decide what's there now is as good as any enhancement, but I think the key thing is to also talk to the businesses and the residents there to make sure what's put up even temporarily will not impact businesses negatively, as far as getting what happened with other plans where the businesses felt that a change could impact delivery, and all of a sudden if you're not on Route 7 as a business, that's not as good as being on Route 7. So I mean, I think those issues would have to be addressed ahead of time during some sort of planning session with the stakeholders. But as this has been talked about for a period of time, it might be time to at least say, yes, let's take a look at it and have some planning sessions to see what might work, I think.
Well, the concept of being on Route 7 or not being on Route 7 is a significant issue. I'm trying to understand how they would temporarily route traffic one way or the other, and around some of those sharp turns. It would have to be a little more extensive than
Yeah,
hay bales and sort of temporary.
right, that would be.
You'd need a piece of equipment.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they would create some barriers. They might do a temporary road area or something that would be, would be safe to navigate. Obviously, we don't want to put an obstacle course in the middle of Route 7. because we might create more accidents than we actually prevent. Just a thought. There's a certain familiarity with what's there now. But again, having the process, I mean, if we get perhaps an enhanced walkway, a better crosswalk than we have now. I just saw the one they put up in Lakeville as part of the redo of the Route 41, 44 interchange. They've got a solar-powered flashy light crosswalk, which is there.
Is this in Lakeville or in Salisbury?
This is in
It's
Lakeville.
in Salisbury.
Well, they have them all. They have another one in Salisbury, but this one actually has flashy lights by the Patco in Lakeville.
Oh,
One in Salisbury doesn't have flashy lights.
I haven't seen that.
So, anyway, so at this point, what I would think is I can call Rick up and say we as a board are interested in being considered, with the idea that this isn't, that we want to have a, community and business involvement before anything gets changed, even on a temporary basis. But it's a good opportunity for the town to look at this issue.
I'm down there 2 or 3 times a week, and the one thing that still shocks me is the number of people who do not stop where Route 4 has that stop sign. I'll be coming down Route 4 to make a left turn, and somebody will be cutting. They will not even slow down at that intersection. Just past the bank. You know what I'm talking about, Richard?
Well, I think it happens at all 4 corners,
Oh.
all 3 corners.
Well, I'm very much aware, because that's the only one that, to me, is the most dangerous. The others, they always seem to stop in front of your shop.
Well,
Maybe not.
I wouldn't
okay.
go that far.
I think
Okay,
people,
okay.
as
I'm
we've
being
noted
optimistic.
before,
And I think the
People's-
one place where there's been the accidents is in front of Baird's, or
Right.
the general
Yeah.
store.
Yeah.
the problem
the
there
one-
is you've got to look back over your
Yeah,
shoulder.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
there, but
Yeah, so it really is hazardous, so I think we
Well.
need to proceed with Rick Lynn and have them come up with something that would be safer.
right. But I think, as we mentioned last time, people's driving seems to have gotten worse recently. So
Yes.
again, you can't blame it on the stop sign in some ways. But again, I think this is an opportunity that's a good opportunity. So why not?
To make an improvement.
Right.
Yep.
With plenty of
I'm still reluctant to change the pattern and become a dead-end leg on an intersection. I think it
Right.
would be dramatically affect what happens to my business anyway. I mean, the being on the road or not being on the road, it's a question of people's driving habits. I don't know. It's a funny intersection. I mean, I'll agree with that totally. But I think something else that should be asked from DOT is for the first responders in Cornwall is where have the accidents been? I mean, we have that
we
report.
have the data. Yeah.
We have the data that there's, in the last 5 years, there's been 1 accident at the triangle itself.
The worst section of road is between here and Cornwall Bridge. It's not here. I mean, there've been accidents all over town.
Yeah.
But where the frequency is the curves by the dump, but especially going down by Furnace Brook and up here by the cemetery. Those are the areas that have the worst on Route 4, and then south of the village of Cornwall Bridge and south of West Cornwall, where that's really bad, where there's a narrow section. So again, it's important to keep all these factors in mind. And the other plans that I'd seen years ago were to close off the section on the east side of the green and tee up the section of Route 7 by your store. So that would still keep the store frontages on Route 7, and the dead end section would be, you also have to maintain access to Dark Entry Road. So you can't
Yes.
close it all, you can't
Right, but
close
that'd
it
just be a
all
little
off.
small stretch
Right.
of
But
Yeah.
it would seem like that would have
limited number of cars.
Mm-hmm,
less impact than closing off
yes.
the other one. But anyway, that's all things to be.
Yeah, we should look at what some of the proposals have been, what the state would be willing to do on a temporary basis, because some of these things are much more permanent, and how they would go about allowing tractor trailers or whatever other large pieces of large trucks to
Correct.
temporarily make the turns necessary.
Right, and again, we don't want to be part of a process that again causes accidents, because people aren't expecting this to happen, and there would have to be a lot of flashy lights and things when this, to warn people this is
Oh, yeah,
what's
intersection
going on.
has changed.
Work in progress.
Intersection has changed.
Okay, so anyway, I will talk to Rick about getting more details about complete streets.
Can I make a comment?
We can have public comment at the end of our agenda, but we have plenty of time for public comment then. We have 2 additions to the agenda. We have tax refunds now.
I don't think we added that.
What tax refunds?
No, we added the POCD and the Senator
Right, the
Murphy.
tax refunds. It's
Oh,
already-
number 10. Oh, I'm sorry, I
Number
didn't see
10.
that on it. I thought-
So we have 2 tax refunds. Totaling $217.22, and another tax refund $43.75. So I'd make a motion that we grant these two tax refunds on request of the tax collector.
Second.
Any discussion?
Additional 2.
All, yes,
This one is 2, one for 192, one for 24, and then you've got another one here, so it'll be 3.
yeah, there's 3 altogether.
Three tax
Right.
requests.
Right. Okay. So any more thoughts on these?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, we have Plan of Conservation and Development, which I have received a copy of in color, and unfortunately, you folks get one in black and white. But that's the way it goes. The important information is in the text, not the pictures. Karen Nelson is here from the land use office, and she gave this to me on Saturday. I did see, I was aware that this isn't just a courtesy call, but we actually have, according to state statute, a formal role to play in this process, which I've copied off to you the state statute, and I think it's interesting that it says they have to have a Plan and Zoning Commission has to have a public hearing prior to their adoption, but they have to submit for review and comment to the legislative body, or in the case of municipality, for which legislative body of the municipality is representative is a town meeting, the Board of Selectmen. So That's us. The Board of Selectmen may hold one or more public hearings on the plan, shall endorse or reject such entire plan or part thereof or amendment, and may submit comments and recommended changes to the commission. The commission may render a decision on the plan without the report of such body or board. And they could render a decision with our report. So I just wanted to give you all that tonight. And again, I think we have 65 days and we can put this on our agenda to have a discussion of this. But with that in mind, I think it's important to go through this report. We are, I think it's also important, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, there is no public vote to adopt this plan. This is not a town meeting item. It goes to the Board of Selectmen in lieu of a town meeting, so the town meeting itself or the voters of the town do not get to vote on this. This is voted on most importantly by the Planning and Zoning Commission, so we have an opportunity to formally have input on behalf of townspeople.
The process is a little bit different this time. 10 years ago, you got the same letter to be able to comment on it. By the way, color copies up on the website on the front page link. In the month of October, Planning and Zoning Commission, based on recommendations from Jocelyn, we are going to ask that the shareholders come to a meeting, because in many cases you're named as the partner to the Planning and Zoning Commission, or something that the Board of Selectmen might do. And instead of assigning duties to unwilling folks, we're going to ask that the declared Board of Selectmen, whether it be Board, Selectmen, Board of Finance, wherever that assigned position is, that you understand that you're named and you're a partner. So you really might want to look at, where you fit into it. That meeting is going to be probably the second Tuesday of October, and the public hearing is going to be set in November, because the 65-day clock that it goes to the COG started over the weekend. I actually forwarded that plan back to COG and asked it opened their time for them to review the consistency of the region and the state plan. But Jocelyn has been very open about having this shareholders meeting. She did it in Warren, and it gives you a chance to come and really state your views as to what you feel you want to do, and that's going to be part of your report. And you might get some more answers at that meeting, because it's really a two-way conversation between the partners. The public hearing is far more for just public comment, because in many cases the public is not asked to take or make actions on recommendations. But no, the plan is approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, not the town meeting.
So the way I read this, it said the selectmen shall endorse or reject the entire plan or part thereof. And so again, we have to either sign off on the plan or say what particular parts we're in favor of or not in favor of. And we're the only group of people that get that chance for input.
And then I like the last sentence.
But
The commission may render a decision on the plan without the report of such body or board. So
But they can't render a decision before 65 days. They can't say it's all good. Have a nice day. Right.
I don't think the Planning and Zoning Commission has spent 2 years on this, not to listen to.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, and I think that they are looking for your comment.
Good. So anyway, it's good reading.
Some homework.
It's interesting. There are some things that need to be corrected in there, and there's some very good work and thought has gone into this. But I think also Karen's Karen's comments are valid, especially if you read that if we're assigned as a responsible lead party for, just open up the page 8 says we're going to press for rehabilitation of the train tracks passing through Cornwall, and we're going to we're going to develop a funding vehicle for town projects supporting actions and goals in this plan. So I mean, there's a bunch of work that it says this or a future board will have to do, and we have a bunch of projects that we have to do, as you see with our agenda. So it's, again, priorities and what do we feel we should be doing in the next 10 years or so, or this board. So it's important. It'll be up near the top of our agenda for the next 65 days, I would think. Okay, so any other thoughts on all that? Okay, so next thing is Selectman Pavel's idea of making a special invite to Senator Murphy, as he was denied a visa to visit Russia, to have him come to our agricultural fair, which I think he's been to before. But anyway, is that a motion?
Suggestion, I guess I could make it
A motion to make a special invite to Senator Murphy to come here to the agricultural fair in light of his having extra time because he can't go to Russia.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Sure, I'll second that personal invitation to Senator Murphy.
And any discussion? My only discussion is that you don't have to have a personal invitation to come to the agricultural fair. A lot of people are looking forward to it, and hopefully it'll be good weather and a good turnout. And there are tickets for the cow chip bingo for sale throughout town. So, all those in favor of
Aye.
that motion? Aye. Okay, hope to see you there. We meet after that. Right. Okay, so now public comment. John.
Have changed my mind.
Okay. Any other public comments? Hector.
I would like to support very, very strongly and wholeheartedly the suggestion from Rick Lynn and COG about the complete streets. You already know my views on the whole matter, but I think it's a great idea. It's great timing to get this underway, and it'll be good for safety and it'll be good for business in the end. It has all the proper attributes, temporary, demonstration only. They're going to remove the stuff when they're finished, and there's no cost to the town. And you can't beat an offer like that, it seems to me, and I'm glad that you folks are willing to support this too. I also happen to think that the T idea, in terms of the traffic pattern, is a good idea. And I thought I would leave with you two examples of previous studies, if you wish, on this. One is a sketch map that Tim Prentice did in 2008, which shows a T kind of arrangement. This is just for information, obviously. His suggestion is here, the existing is here. And then in 2016, the DOT and had this Connecticut Community Connectivity Program, and they had two suggestions also for Ts, this being the existing and these being the two possible Ts that they suggested at that time. So it seems to me that the slowing of the traffic, considering the particularly poor driving that's going on these days, it should be now. We should get started on this as soon as possible. The other aspect of this, of course, is using the green in a different way. That's mentioned by Rick in his, from what Gordon said. And I think that would be a good idea as well. Otherwise, it's a patch of no man's land that is hardly ever used. And then I have end of statement on that subject. But I have two quick questions. One is that it seems to me the speed monitor in West Cornwall hardly ever works. I don't know what's the matter with the thing, but I go down the hill and I don't know how fast I'm going, and nor does anybody else. I'm not sure so much about the one at Cornwall Bridge. It seems to me that works occasionally at least, but the West Cornwall one.
I think it has more sunlight
Well,
in
that's
Cornwall Bridge. I think it's the trees that block.
Well, the state ought to, the DOT ought to do something about it. I mean, either take it away or make it useful, not what it is now. And the other question is off the wall, sort of. Does anybody here know what's happening at the gas station at Cornwall Bridge? I was down there this morning at 8 o'clock. The place is closed up, pumps are closed, everything's locked down. And I wondered if there's something happening there. Richard, perhaps you know.
I think it's a question of finding help,
Okay.
because the individual I saw over the weekend said he had just put in his fourth, 16-hour day or something.
Yeah, I was,
I see, okay. So it's not a permanent closure?
no,
I
it was,
don't know.
I was able to fill up there at about 12:15 today. So it was back in
Oh,
business
back
at
in
12:15, 12:30, 12:35.
Yeah. Anyway, I
So-
think that this Complete Streets proposal is kind of a godsend.
But I think also having the gas station closed, I think, brings up something as I read through this plan, how important the local businesses are, even though that business is technically in Sharon. But again, if we lose our gas station, our village markets, whatever else, it's a huge deal. And we used to have 2 gas stations fairly recently. Now we're down to 1. The Falls Village lost theirs. So again, I think that is something that we've talked about a lot, and I think we need to I'm not sure we need to put the gas station on the cover of the town plan, but it's sometimes an underappreciated thing of how these businesses are crucial to people in town. Otherwise, people have to drive somewhere else a long way to get their goods and services. And that's something that's happening throughout small town America in this age of e-commerce and a few other things. But just a thought that popped in my mind. Okay? Anything else? Oh, the press.
Yes, I'm wondering if Senator Murphy is going to plan to come to the agricultural fair. I need to know what the dates are.
It is September 14th. And there is somewhere
Here.
we can get you. Here's the nice
You can have that
insert, color copy,
Thank you.
ready to go. So it'll be nice to have a nice build-up coverage of that. The 28th annual,
Yep.
right there. Goshen was 107, so we're trying to catch up. Anyway, thank you.
And Friday.
Layla, do you get the Cornwall Chronicle every month? Because that was an insert in this month's.
Oh, yeah, no, I did, well, online, you mean?
No,
Oh,
physically. I'm not an online person.
uh-huh,
You don't get it?
uh-huh.
Okay, I'll make sure you get it.
Thank you.
Great, okay.
And
Anything-
Friday at 5 o'clock is set up if you need a photo op or anything for setting up on the green.
They set up on Friday, the Friday night before. Great. Okay, all right, thank you all for coming. We're now going to pay bills.